Welcome. We are excited to have you join in our CHIRP Alumni webinar series. And my name is Adam Drummond, and I am a member of the Alumni Council and excited to be joining with you today as we talk about a really important topic in our career series around retirement. So today we're going to be talking retirement ready in 60 minutes. And we have a great group of panelists that are joining us today who are going to provide lots of fantastic information. And so before we jump in and get into the content, I'd love for them to take a moment and introduce themselves and to tell us a little bit about who they are. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your name, graduation year from Ball State, college, background, expertise. And I'm just going to go straight down the line on our panelists here. And Gary, I'm going to let you start first.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gary Schlichman, and I was born and raised in New York City, went to college in Illinois, graduated from Eastern Illinois University. Then I worked on my master's. When I came to Muncie as a YMCA director, which was what my career was started out as, I took graduate classes here, finished them up, eventually left the YMCA and opened up a gymnastics school with my partner who was the head coach at Ball State. And we did that for a while. And in between that, then an insurance agent convinced me to become an insurance agent. And that's what I did 45 years ago. Seems like just yesterday. So we do estate retirement planning, but we concentrate a lot with seniors on Medicare and Medicare supplements, Social Security planning, that type of thing. Been in Muncie over 52 years now and love the community and love working with people.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gary. We're glad to have your expertise here today as we talk about this very important topic. David, we'll let you introduce yourself now.
Yeah, I'm David Jones, born and raised in Muncie, Indiana. I had the luxury of playing football there at Ball State University. Got my bachelor's at the Miller College of Business and my master's at Ohio University. Background, what I do is I help families and business owners grow and protect their wealth. I'm a financial advisor with Edward Jones Investments. Been doing this since about 2013. Really excited to be here and to kind of be a part of the conversation, guys. So thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks, David. And then last but not least, Janine.
I'm Janine Harold, and I was a child of the 60s in college and finished graduate work in the early 70s, but never really quit going to school because after a fair number of years working in adult and community education, I transitioned into higher ed and worked with slightly younger adults. Some of them weren't quite there yet, but we hoped they would be by the time they graduated or left Ball State. And I finished my career at the university. I was at the university for 34 years in a professional status, and I retired as the director of the Career Center. In fact, we actually pulled together a number of parts of the university into what became the Career Center. So I suspect with some of the folks in the audience today, they may have experienced different aspects of that as students. And then in retirement, I kind of I've blended those two things, working with adults in the community and leadership development, board training, but also hoping, my husband and I decided that we were going to retire in Muncie because there was no shortage of things to do. And so we knew with the university and other things, we'd always have something to do. And that's really kind of how we spend our days in various aspects of what's going on in the community.
Great, thanks, Janine. And I also want to quickly introduce a couple other faces that you'll see here. Kate Weber works at the alumni office, and so she spearheaded a lot of the behind the scenes with registrations and helping with the moderation today. So we want to thank her. And then Chloe here is on camera with us. And so I'll let Chloe just quickly introduce herself and the role that she's playing today in our moderation.
Thanks, Adam. My name is Chloe Turner. I work at the Alumni Association with Kate, and I will just be answering any or putting any questions in the chat up for discussion for our panelists to answer.
Great. Thank you, Chloe. And speaking of the chat feature, we do have that open and active for all of our participants today. And so we certainly want to hear your questions. We have some general ideas and areas that we're going to go today as part of the panelists, but you're here to get information around retirement and what that looks like on your various stages. And so please do not hesitate to include your questions in the chat, and we will prioritize those questions over the ones that we have kind of built out, because we want to make sure that you leave here with actionable items. And so know that this is an interactive panel discussion, and we're excited to have you all here as part of our participation in this event as well. So we thought we'd start with Janine giving us some background and foundation just around the current state of retirement, some principles to be thinking about as you make this piece the next part of your career. And Janine, when we were prepping, one of the pieces that really resonated with me that I hadn't really heard before is that retirement really is part of your career pathway. It's not the end, right? You don't finish your career and then you go into retirement, but we really should be thinking of it as part of that continuum. And I thought that was a really important piece for us to start with, and just something that resonated with me personally. So would love to turn it over to you for a few moments and kind of level set us before we jump into some questions.
And Adam and Kate have prepared some slides with some points on it that they'll share with you that I think kind of gives you some bullet points. And I think Kate's going to send those out afterwards as well. The thing that I think kind of hit me between the eyes a few years ago, there was one of the career planning gurus, Richard Bowles, and some of you have seen his things, and he wrote about the 3 boxes of life, and he called them, education, work, and retirement. And that people for years thought of their lives that way. You went to school and then you worked and then you retired. But those stages, people kind of go back and forth and, go back to school at older ages and, or go back to work. And so that was really, most of us, and I just spent about 4 days with some of my professional colleagues from around the country who are retired. And we all talked about this, that it's really just another part of career planning. We didn't really think of that much when we were actively engaged on campuses. But, towards the end of our professional lives, or at least the daily lives, we did begin to think this is just another part of your life, and your retirement is probably not going to be the same as your parents. And there are a couple of examples. I think the one that hit me hardest was the recession of 2008, because that was the year I chose to retire from the director's role at the Career Center. And some of you are old enough to know that we had a really bad economic downturn. And then just the latest thing that is in the news all the time, and it's probably hyped a little bit, but maybe not so much, and that's what they're calling the Great Resignation. And so there are, you go back and think about, and I don't know if you want to pull up the slides, Adam or Kate, whoever, the next one that has some points on it, that the basic principles of retirement is that, number one, it's a career transition away from paid work. Maybe, some of us do sort of a little bit of paid work. Sometimes we do consulting. Sometimes we take a position that's really just an hourly position in order to have something to do with our time. But it almost always includes unpaid work. And it may be voluntary, but it may not be. The economic conditions, somebody might lose their job. The pandemic is a great example of people who lost their jobs and didn't really plan to retire, but ended up, well, gosh, I can tap into some of these resources. I guess I will. So that was kind of an unplanned retirement. But it also is something that occurs over a long period of time. I know people who've been retired they didn't retire that early, but if they retired at 62 and they're now in their late 80s, just think how long they've been retired. But it's usually kind of shaped by things that you've done in your life. And I use myself as an example, things that I really enjoyed doing and I can do again because I have the time and I can pay the attention to it. It includes aging. So what you do at 60, 62, 65, 68 is probably not going to be the same thing that you do 20 years later if you're still able to, to have some freedom over what you do. But, your interests and activities related to those will probably change as well. Things that were really exciting at the time you retired may not be so. It might be because of the changes in the community or changes where you move, but you're probably going to have some difference. But that happens in your career lives too. And then it also requires, and this is where Gary and David are going to help you, is that it requires that your economic support will last as long as you do. It's not, so what happens if there is a pandemic, or what happens if there's a recession or whatever, have you really planned for that? But going back to kind of the principles of career planning is, do you even know how to make decisions in the first place? Has somebody made those decisions for you, or do you know how to make them? Because in retirement, you may be alone. You may not have planned for that, but you might be and have to make some decisions. Kind of what you were thinking an ideal retirement would be. I always like to say, do you have a purpose? That's kind of my tagline is, I get up every day and I just try to be relevant. And so do you have some personal purpose? And then do you have a plan to support that? And then there are going to be interruptions in your life and plans. And a lot of those have to do with family circumstances and people who, we don't have grandchildren, so we don't have those interruptions, but people who have, and lots of family members will find their own plans interrupted by other people's conditions. And then just kind of the last thing, do you, in addition to economic security and physical health, which is what we think about most often, is there any personal satisfaction that you're considering? And sometimes changing locations will be a real challenge to your personal satisfaction. So that's
great,
my outline.
Yeah, no, that's great, Janine. And, I think even with preparation, like when you think about retirement, you immediately go to the financial security, right? Like, what does that look like? I think a lot of times that becomes synonymous in our mind. But those questions that you posed really get way beyond that. Yes, it is a piece of that, but it's also this full gamut of life satisfaction. And so I know for myself already, like those questions, I took a picture with my phone as we were sitting there, because I think those are really important questions that we need to be thinking about and watching and observing as we continue through. And so as we think about this work, I'd love to hear from David and Gary really around, as you think about retirement and supporting folks, like what excites you about this opportunity to help people in their lives? And then along with that, like as you think through that, what should people be doing right now at the various stages?
I think one of the things for me, I look back when I started in the business, and I started just selling life insurance. And my philosophy at that time, and has followed through with my entire career, is that selling somebody a life insurance policy is the start of their family planning, their retirement planning for it. It's part of it, okay? It's not, it's not the retirement plan, but it's all part of it. And Janine hit on a lot of different things. And so when I started, of course, I started with a lot of younger clients who are now, a lot of them are 65 and above. As far as that goes, but I still have a lot of young clients. And one of the things that I would counsel them on from my experience was those that were married, was find something that the both of you enjoy doing. You may not do it every day, you may not do it every week, but find something that you enjoy doing, because when you reach that point of retirement, then you're looking at each other and going, the kids are gone, and maybe the grandkids don't live in the area. Maybe you don't even have any grandkids, and you become a couple of strangers. You don't have something in common that the two of you love to do. So that's always been my counsel with younger clients, because I've been married for almost 60 years now. And,
Wow.
and the question is, oh my gosh, how did you do that? And I always tell them, well, the answer is yes, dear. And that helps to extend it as far as that goes. Most people think of, when they think of retirement, they're thinking of financial, as opposed to some of these things that Janine pointed out. And I think those things are so important. Most clients are concerned about running out of money. And that's the things that the three of us, can help and handle people with. Primarily, my business has morphed more into working with people from a standpoint of the Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security planning, but especially around the Medicare area. And, in talking with clients, I tell them that they really need to start looking at it, depending on when they want to retire, but at the same time, generally around 55, is start thinking about it and thinking about what you want to do and where you want to go. And whether they're working with me, I have several associates that are stockbrokers and in different areas. And so we work as a team to work with that client to help them, guide them, to reach the goals that they have and the desires that they have, and hopefully show them that they're not going to run out of money. When it comes to the health insurance end of it, I've had clients come in that retired. It's not so bad now because, not that I'm happy about Obamacare, but at least they have a guarantee they can go on an insurance policy, where before that, if they retired early and their health was shot, they might have trouble getting health insurance. Now, at least they can get it, but they have no concept of what the cost is going to be. So that's one of the things that, I encourage people before you retire, sit down and find out what those expenses are going to be, especially if you're taking early retirement before going on Medicare and a Medicare supplement or an Advantage plan. That type of thing. And then when it comes to the Medicare, doing what we call regular Medicare with a Medicare supplement or the Advantage plan, which right now everybody's getting phone calls that's over 65. It's on TV every time you turn around with all of these actors pushing, and basically they're pushing the Advantage plan. And that the Advantage plan can be fine, but you need to sit down with somebody that is a professional and understands how that works and how it compares to regular Medicare and the Medicare D and that part of it, so that you really understand what, that decision, and you're making an educated decision when it comes to that. So that's kind of my area of expertise in reality.
So David, as you kind of listen through, in the work that you're doing with Edward Jones and these components, what are you seeing and hearing in your perspective?
So I love solving problems and partnering with people to help them achieve their goals. So if I can reach a young professional or someone in their latter years of life and help educate them and show them a way or a plan to live during their retirement years that gives them a peace of mind, I get like a huge rush. I truly feel like God is using me helping steward his people in that way. In regards to younger people, I love trying to explain to younger folks who are have been just getting started working, and they're hearing about like the 401k or retirement plans, or even older people who are close to that point of retirement. That retirement is really identifying what type of lifestyle do I want to have if money wasn't really an option. And that typically revolves around a type of flexibility within your life choices, and really identifying how much income do I need to have every month coming in to support my lifestyle. And once you identify that, then all the fun really begins, at least on my side, helping you plan to actually retire. Younger people, retirement is just so far away. It's really difficult to really talk about something that may happen 25, 30 years down the road. So I really, help them identify what kind of lifestyle do you want to have in the future, right? And then I help expose them and help them think through what kind of career paths, career choices and life choices will help align with that overall goal. So I get a really good kick out of that, and helping talking with younger people, especially, in regards to retirement planning.
So I guess a follow-up question for the panelists, if I'm somebody that's sitting here in this conversation, or I'm watching the recorded webinar, and I'm feeling lots of anxiety about where my current retirement situation is in the moment, like, what should I do?
I always lean on, talking to a professional. The difficult part of those anxieties is, look, for one, where I'm at, I don't understand this space, and who can I trust to help educate me in an area that I either don't have time for, I don't want time for, or just overwhelming to me. So what I try to help educate people is starting where you are, starting where your feet are, and go talk with someone that you can learn to trust. And you may have to interview a few people or get a reference to somebody who can actually sit down with you and kind of help you identify where it is you are currently, and help you identify where it is you want to be financially in the future. And that can be overwhelming, but that person who you're talking to should help calm those nerves and those anxieties by educating you on a path forward. So really just starting where you are and trusting someone else to help get you to where you want to be, Adam.
And I definitely agree that, having a professional is really where it's at. And, people think that in the past, and I've not really faced it, believe it or not, in 45 years of doing this and meeting with people, that, well, it is going to try to sell me this or sell me that, they're a salesman. And my clients know, because I tell them, I don't care if I sell them anything. I'm not independently wealthy, but I want them walking out of the office with peace of mind. And because of that, and that's been my philosophy all the way through, I've been blessed. I don't advertise. Everything comes to me from referrals. And so I would encourage people to reach out to their friends see who they're working with. And if they're working with somebody that they're happy with, that they feel comfortable with, that they have peace of mind with, then that's the person that they should hook up with. Because none of us really, or most of us, let's put it that way, are not there to just sell you something. You're a client, and we want a long-term relationship. Now, we talk about retirement, and when I say I'm 80 years old, it's like, well, gee whiz, I'm only 65, and it's like, I tell them, even if I live as long as my mom, which was almost to 100, it's a short period of time. But one of the things that I had to do from a standpoint of looking at my agency, because I don't plan on retiring. I love what I do. My clients are my friends, and they give me a reason, or an extra reason really, to get up every day and feel like I'm doing some good for more than just my family, which I love very much. But I searched, and I have a younger agent that is even smarter than I am. And not that I'm not smart, but is pretty brilliant in this field. And so anything happens to me, then Dan takes over. And my clients know that, and I want them to know that, and I want them to feel comfortable with him, because it's like, the older I get, and fortunately my health has been good, been blessed that way, but who knows? So even doing retirement planning for other people, it's like, I'm not looking at retirement planning, but what happens with my clients, because there's almost 1,000 of them out there, and that's a lot of people. And I don't want to bite the bullet and then leave them out there, and where do they go? So that's part of it as well.
Yep. Janine, you were going to jump in there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's also just I'm a big advocate for networking, building networks, and kind of maintaining those. And so that's one of the great things about being part of a university community. And I stay fairly active on LinkedIn, and from time to time, somebody will say, oh, a graduate student or somebody will get in touch. And I think it's the same way. So if you're 23 years old and you're graduating in a couple of weeks, don't forget where you came from, but don't think about using people as much as staying in touch and maintaining those relationships. And so from time to time, whether it's a holiday greeting or it's I'm moving so-and-so, and do you know any alums who were there, or different kinds of things. It's just, one of the tools of the career planning trade or job search tools is called informational interviewing. And that's really what David's talking about and Gary's talking about with the kinds of professions they're in. But it's true with really almost everything. You say you're going to retire to, pick a warm spot, because people don't usually retire to Wisconsin. Only Dan and Dinah Burns would do that. Maybe it's Minnesota. I can't remember. But, normally it's to someplace warm. And so you think, who's there that I can connect with? Or am I just going there on my own? And so that's all part of it. When I think about retirement as just another career phase or stage, it's, what did I do to get the last job? What am I going to do to find purpose in my life if I'm going someplace else, or I'm not going to my office or my place of work every day?
Yeah, I think Janine, and I think maybe, hinting at this a little bit in that process around, growing your professional learning network, but even to that next step, right? Looking for mentors. Who are people who are people that you admire, that you look up to, like somebody who is retired. And even though the financial conditions are very different today than maybe folks who are just entering retirement or in retirement, they can be great mentors in this retirement planning process as well, right? Asking them, what did you do? How did you get connected? What do I need to be thinking about at my age? And so I think the power of that mentoring piece is one that I think fits really well in this continuum of career pathway also.
And that's one of the, I guess that's one of the real positive things about different kinds of social networks, is that you can stay in touch with people. You don't have to rely on, cat videos or some kind of latest conspiracy theory to stay in touch with people. You can talk about, really important, life moments with people. And I liked I'm a big fan of mentors. I had a couple of mentors at the university that really made a difference. I knew them as a young professional and up until the ends of their lives. And so if you don't have a couple of those, and, it doesn't have to be some kind of, really well organized relationship, but one that you admire. Sometimes it's just you admire the way they live or the way they do life or the way they make decisions. And if you're struggling with that, and how do I know when it's time to retire? Or how do I know when I need to move on and do something else? Sometimes people in your network who may be mentors can help you with those decisions.
Yeah.
And Adam, to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Go ahead, David.
I do want to add that if you're a younger individual and you're just getting started out in the career field and you're trying to understand it all, it's really good to identify what kind of lifestyle financially you want to have in the future. Because if you're a lifestyle that you want to have, married, multiple kids, and you want to do a lot, and that lifestyle is, just say, $100,000 a year, but the career choice you make is only paying you $30,000 a year or so, that's a huge disconnect in regards to planning, right? And it happens a lot, right, Janine, where people just don't fully understand. But when you're making that decision, you want to make sure that you are fully understanding, each career path's complete compensation package. What's the healthcare benefits? What kind of benefits do they give you financially within your retirement plan? And do they offer you any other kind of support from a family perspective as well? And then once you start working as a young adult, if you can, automatically just take whatever the company is providing you in regards to your retirement package. So if they're matching you 3 or 5% of your income, try to at least deduct that from your income or your pay, so that you're at least getting that 3% or 5% or wherever the match is in regards to your retirement plan. Those are really easy steps in regards to kind of getting started out, Adam.
I think that's an important point, David, because when I said you won't have your parents' retirement, you know, I don't know the statistics on this, but the number of people who don't have, you know, the typical retirement plan, no pension, there may be a 401k, and we all know that that's subject to market conditions and also personal decision making related to it, like David said. And so with the great number of people who will retire without pensions, it'll really make a difference in how they plan as well.
I love that. Go ahead, Gary.
I was going to say, going back when the 401k came out, that was one of the worst things as far as we're concerned in our industry. And I've been a member of our national association. It's the National Association of Insurance and Financial Advisors. And I serve on our state board here in Indiana for that. But 401ks, people thought that was really great. Well, it really wasn't. The pension was the thing that the company was responsible for putting the money away, that type of thing. And unfortunately, in America, we're not the greatest savers in the world. And as Janine pointed out, 401ks, if the person does what they should do, then yes, they're going to end up with, they should end up with some pretty good money. I'm working with my neighbor who actually when I came here in my 20s and was the Y director downtown, he was one of my kids, which I found out after we moved into the neighborhood, and it was like, whoa, wait a minute, how could he even remember me 60 years or 50 years ago, that kind of thing. But this is a couple that have worked what I consider regular jobs, don't really have a pension, but they work their 401k and they saved, and they're going to be able to retire comfortably. But as Janine and David said, most people don't fund those the way they should, unfortunately. And so if you have an advisor, if you have somebody that can encourage you and show you why and show you how, for the younger people in particular, because they have the time for that money, that miracle of compound interest, you know, compound growth, to be there for them. And then they're not going to retire and be looking at just Social Security and maybe $10 or $20 or $30,000 in the bank. That makes life really, really tough. So yeah, those are things where the advisor can come in and work with that young person. The other thing is, you know, you graduate from college, and I thought I'd be a YMCA director for the rest of my life. I loved what I was doing. I did it for 10 years, had great experience with that. And next thing I knew, it was like, you know what, this isn't where it's at. And I ended up at Sears here in Muncie as a salesman. And I thought, well, and the main reason is we didn't want to leave Muncie. And so that morphed into a young man that became our insurance agent, and then convinced me to come in the business. And like I said, I've been doing it for 45 years, but I've had 3 major careers, and most college graduates, whether they realize it or not, will have 3 different kinds of careers before they get to retirement. So be ready to ebb and flow, and not feel like you're stuck and can't make a change.
Well, and I think a couple points there to summarize what all of you said. I think, you know, for our participants who are fresh out of college, making sure that they do the match. I heard that loud and clear, David, right? Start there and put in then, because you're not missing it, right? Like if you don't do it right out, then those dollars get associated to other expenses or things, and then you're missing that opportunity and that compounding interest, right? That comes over time. The other piece, and I've, Gary, to your point, that I think is important is we do move from career to career, right? Like very few people now is what my grandparents did, right? They had one job, one career, they were there, he retired, he had the pension, that's where it was. Now you have multiple jobs. And so then you're now trying to track your various retirements from different locations in different places. And I think that can be very confusing for folks. So David, maybe you could start by addressing this. Like, what do I do as somebody who maybe is moving from career to career? How do I make sure that I don't lose something along the way? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, Adam. And there's a few options you have. One, you can take all your money you've accumulated in your retirement accounts and put it in your bank. I would not advise against that. I would not advise for that. It's a huge, it could be a huge, hefty tax liability. But if you're partnering with someone who's helping you and your family grow your wealth, that's earmarked for retirement or a future goal, then they can help you establish what's called an individual retirement account. That account is a vehicle that will help you take ownership of your own retirement accounts, right? And move that money, which is in a 401k or any kind of retirement plan, into that account that you now are able to control and own. So you can work with a professional to do that, or if you educate yourself enough, you can do that yourself, like a TD Ameritrade or something. I do value working with a professional, but sometimes you don't always have to work with a professional. So there are options out there where you can kind of figure this thing out on your own. There's possibilities for mistakes or none. Hope does that answer the question, Adam? So as you're changing careers, there are vehicles out there that allow you to move your wealth into what's called an individual retirement account that you or someone that you're paying to manage your money can help you manage for you without creating any kind of penalties or any kind of tax liability along the way. And in doing so, all your retirement accounts will be in one place to where you or someone you're paying to help manage your wealth can help steward you in a more clear perspective.
Yeah, I think that this is certainly a topic for young and mid-career professionals that even though it's farther down the road, the organization and structure and having that plan in place is absolutely critical. So you don't get toward the mid to end of career full-time, moving into the next part of your career, and now you're kind of grasping at straws or trying to figure out what do you need to do. And I guess my question is it ever too late to start, right? If I'm a mid-career professional and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm listening to this webinar today and I should have had David in my life or Gary in my life or Janine in my life 20 years ago, am I at a lost cause?
No, you would be surprised how many people go through life events, right? And they're in their low 50s or mid 50s or even 60s. And they start where they're at, right? And that's what I mentioned before, starting where your feet are. And they work with a professional and they're saving a ton of money or whatever they can a year. And now they're in just that's a horrible English, so forgive me, but much better position financially than they were before. I mean, that's the objective, is to get you to a place that helps create a peace of mind and helps show you that, hey, I can actually do this. And typically just starting where your feet are. And it's difficult sometimes if you may not be in a position where you think is a good position, but the focus of working with myself, Gary, Janine, or someone else is to help bring that clarity and help create that peace of mind for you. So starting where your feet are, starting where you are is definitely valuable.
So what I hear you saying is for our participants is, as you finish today, look for those recommendations. Like you said, Janine, find the folks who out in the field or that you're connected with who may be having resources or having success, and have those conversations. I think sometimes we feel like retirement isn't something that we have lots of conversations around. Like it seems very personal because it's always connected to money. And I think people don't like to talk about money, but yet this is really about preserving your life and living a way that you want to be able to live. And so when folks leave here today, if they have concerns or questions or challenges, like looking and advocating for yourself to find that person you could talk to.
Well, and I think related to that, we still have, even though it's not your parents' retirement, we still have the perspective from a number of people who are retired that there will be, you close one door and then you open another one and you never go back in that other door again. And, or that you have some, clearly defined and map of, and I can remember this question for the 6 months before I retired, because one of the things that happens with, excuse me, can't stop that. One of the things that happens with university people is that we work on some kind of a schedule that's pretty well known. It's only been in recent years that people ever retired in mid-year. So there are a lot of professions like that. Teaching is one of them. You can retire in June, but you can't retire in April. So we have all of that. And so there are people there who are just kind of either waiting to give you advice or waiting to ask you to do something that they want you to do for them. Learning how to say no is really hard, or learning how to say, no, I don't have this all mapped out. I'm going to figure it out when I have, when my head's clear. I know some things that I want to do. I know some things about myself that I want to be able to use. But exactly where, I don't know. But I have thought about how much money it's going to take me to live. To go back to David again, that, I pretty much need to know, am I going to be able to live on, 60% of what my take-home pay was, or, since I don't have to pay for expensive lunches or, whatever it is. But to think about, yeah, it's part of the career you've had, but it's not going to be the full thing.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And, I think, we obviously have some missteps along the way. And I think sometimes people get discouraged of that. And so I think, especially with COVID and folks losing jobs, I think there was definitely that scare around, what do I do? And should I do things or should I not do things? And one of the questions that I see popped up here is, what are the advantages or disadvantages of taking Social Security either early or later? And so would love for one or more of our panelists to take a stab at that recommendation or question, which I think is a really good question.
Well, let me jump in on that. That really is, it becomes a very personal thing. There's no generic answer to whether you should take it, at 65 or 62, or wait till 70 or 70 and a half, that type of thing, because there's so many factors that come into play. What, how long did your parents live? What is your health like? Those kind of factors come into play. If I have a client that comes in who really has, one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel, and unfortunately it's a heartbreaker, you'd be amazed at how many 65-year-olds are in bad shape. And so when you talk to them, it's like, no, I'm not gonna, I don't think I'm gonna live past 70. So, I want to take my Social Security. And when you look at those things and, you step back, because we don't have anything in it as far as that goes. We want to give them the best advice that we can, give them the pros and cons. Then that's how the decision is going to be made, as opposed to there's some cut and dry answer that you should take it at 62 and a half. Because I've had clients take it at 62 and 64, and they take a big hit. But when we look at everything that that we're dealing with, what, how much money they have in the bank, what their retirement is, all of those kind of things, and you take into consideration their health. The health to me is one of the biggest things. But there's no guarantee that you're not going to get hit by the cement truck tomorrow. So, there's kind of that gamble that's there. And so everybody's different, but it's a conversation. It's something that you're going to have, we sit down with each individual and we look at their picture as opposed to some general format that's used in determining that. So jump on in, guys.
Oh, I think that was good, Gary. I saw some more questions, and I know we're kind of being tight on time. I wanted to.
Yeah, no, there's another question here. And it says, I don't know who to talk to about what Medicare plan I will need to sign up for. What is a good place to start? I plan to retire in the spring of 2023. And I think that's a really good question. And I think, to your point, Marilyn, I think lots of folks find it difficult to navigate some of those decisions in looking at Medicare, and because there's always so much information out there. And I think with media and social media and news and even mail coming in, like, where do you even begin to start to get some of those answers?
My advice there is don't pick up the phone and make a phone call. Don't fill out the card and mail a card in unless you want to be inundated by telephone calls. Right now is open enrollment time. So I'm working round the clock with my clients going over their Medicare D. Medicare D, the prescription part, is part of open enrollment. The other part of open enrollment is the Advantage plan. Clients that have regular Medicare and a Medicare supplement, they're not involved in the open enrollment. That period, that means nothing to them. They can change their plan as long as their health is good anytime that they want to. So right now, that's what it's all about, is the Advantage plan and it's Medicare D. So in working with my clients to review their prescriptions to make sure that the plan we have them on this year is still the best plan for next year, they send me their medicines, we go online, we take a look at what's there. And it's very important that you do that every year. I had one client 2 years ago that if he'd have stayed on the same plan we put him on, which he was happy with, the next year he would have been paying out $10,000 because the company he was with changed their formulary and they were not going to cover his medications, which were very expensive medications. So of course we moved him to a different company where it was back to where he normally was paying like $800 a year, $1,000 a year for his premium and his medications. The thing that in talking with clients to make sure we're in communicating with them, getting everything squared away before December 7th, all I'm hearing every day from clients is, I'm getting phone calls every day. They're driving me absolutely crazy. And I'm getting all this stuff in the mail. And it's like, and they know because they've been clients for a while, their next comment is, yeah, I know, just ignore it and forget it. So my recommendation is talk to your friends who are on Medicare and find out who their agent is. So at least you're going to talk to a professional and you're not going to get 50 million phone calls, and they're going to be able to, as long as they do both, be able to discuss regular Medicare, Medicare D, and the Advantage plan and fill in the blanks on that, tell you the rest of the story other than it's free, it's free, it's free, and the premiums are zero. So.
Great. Janine, David, anything else to add around that question with Medicaid or Medicare? Sorry.
See, that's, I guess the only thing I would say is another place is to talk with whoever your insurance advisor is, if you have one at your place of employment, because, working at, and this isn't true for all universities, but working at Ball State, they have a separate plan for retirees. The way you access that has changed over time. But that was also a nice service for them. I didn't have to become part of the insurance program at Ball State, but if I ever left it, I could never come back. So, looking at some of those to maybe just start with where you are.
Yeah, Janine,
Yeah.
I think that's an important point. We haven't really hit on that, is your HR department and your various businesses are also a really great resource for you to use and to look at as well, because these are all things that are really benefit related, in the moment.
Right.
And so if there's questions that maybe you don't understand or you don't know, starting with your HR director or your HR department can be helpful. And then I think, to your point, David, I think you mentioned this earlier, that I think is worth reinforcing, is as you look at next steps in even career changes or career advancements or lateral moves, making sure you understand the benefit package as part of the decision making if I'm going somewhere. Because yes, the pay is one piece, but if you're leaving one company where they're doing a 6% match in retirement, and the other company that you're going to go to is only offering a 3% match, that's a consideration to think about as you're looking at that total employment package. And I think a lot of times folks maybe don't always look at those other components that make up your salary and benefits.
Yeah, I'm piggybacking on what Janine said, because I met with the young lady that was handling the health insurance here at Ball State with a client of mine, because we were trying to determine which plan was going to be, whether she should go on Medicare, the Medicare supplement, or use the Ball State plan. And that's what we determined, was the Ball State plan was the best thing for her. So that's the other thing for people to understand is, again, as I've said, as agents, our goal is to do what's in the client's best interest and what's right for the client. And I realize there are people out there that are not bent that way, but most of us are. And so you're going to get the best advice, whether it's an HR director at a business or whether it's here at Ball State. I'm going to look at it. I want that information for that client. And I've had a number of clients where they've retired from different businesses and didn't think that they wanted to, stay with that program. And I showed, and especially even in the education field of teachers, where they were clients of mine, the association sent out a better deal for them. They called me about it, and I'm going, hey, this is the way to go. It's gonna, I know you like me, but you don't need to be paying an extra $20 a month, just to have me. I'm here and I'll always be here for you. And eventually what happened in some of those cases is then their rates went up even with the group. And so they ended up coming back to me as, in doing that. So it ebb and flows again, but, having a true professional person is going to be looking out for your best interest and is going to help you to make those proper decisions. And it's like David said, when you and Janine, when you're younger and you're dealing with 401k, I've had clients come and go, they're telling me I can do this, this, or this. What should I do? And a lot of companies don't have anybody there to give them the advice. And while it doesn't make us any money, and we don't charge them anything, we're going to help them to make the right decision as far as where they should put their investments in that particular portfolio for that year. So, we do a lot of what I tease my attorney clients. I tease them that this is my pro bono work,
Yep. So we are getting near the end of time here. And I think, as we think about the CHIRP webinar series and the work that Ball State does, each of us have had a phenomenal experience around our university components. I would love just to maybe hear from each of you, how has your Ball State experience helped you professionally? And as you look at the work that's happening to really impact the lives of others.
You want us to respond to that, Adam?
That'd be great. Yeah, feel free.
Well, like I said, we made a decision that we were going to retire in Muncie. And I think it was largely because of relationships and also opportunities to be involved in the community. We laughed about if we had maybe lots of money at a young age, we might have bought property someplace else, but we didn't. The answer to both of those questions, we didn't. And but I think the relationships, but partly because that was that was where I was employed. But I just think that a university community, wherever it is, it might be Wabash in Crawfordsville, Indiana, I don't know. I just think there's something about the opportunities that go along with that. And so the fact that, we're all in some way or another related to Ball State for this webinar today is to think about universities maybe in a little bit different way in terms of a community of people who may have some interests that you'd like to share, and think about that in your retirement plans, whether it's may not be Ball State, but it could be another university.
Great, thanks, Janine.
I will ditto Janine, what she said. I think that the coolest thing about being a part of the university is the relationships that you develop along the way. Many life experiences have helped me out, but what's mattered the most is being able to pick up the phone and talk to a trustee, or pick up the phone and talk to someone who's been part of the organization, or if I'm traveling across the country and I can spark up a conversation with someone who went to Ball State, right? So I would ditto the comment that Janine made. It's really about relationships, and a key part of life is developing relationships and making those lasting relationships, because relationships are one thing that really help us, especially young folks getting started out and don't know where to go, or if you're retired, you don't know what to do. Relationships really help out in bridging those gaps.
Yeah, I would say that, for me, my relationship with Ball State started when I came here, as a young YMCA director, because it was all about fitness and this kind of thing. And at that time, Dave Costel, Bud Getchell were here and doing all the research for Gatorade and stuff like that. And so my relationships with Ball State has been, from the time that I came here. I've got a son that graduated, a granddaughter that's graduated, a grandson just graduated a year ago from Ball State. And the friendships, I have a lot of clients that, have professors here at the university. Some of them have retired, but the friendships and the relationships and all of the activities that I've been able to take part in through the Alumni Association and through the foundation, in working with it and working with clients for it. The other thing is, being a kid from New York and going to school in Illinois, and then ending up in Indiana and building a log cabin to live in. It's like, my parents couldn't believe it, that's what my wife and I ended up doing and raising our kids. But, we love our community. We love the involvement, and like Janine said, it's all about relationships. And, we could, in our business, we could go anywhere and do it. And, Muncie's not perfect, but it's been a good city, a good town, a good place to raise 4 kids. And 8 of my 12 grandkids have all gone to school, either at Central or at Delta. And so, yeah, it's a good town, and I'm happy that we're here, and that's why I keep doing what I'm doing.
Great. Well, thank you all. And, as we wrap up this webinar for today, I think the investment and commitment from Ball State University and this idea around lifetime learning, the CHIRP webinar series is really created as a way to give back and to show this connection that, Ball State University, yes, we spend 4 years as undergraduates here, and then maybe, we come back and do some of our advanced degree work. But Ball State University really is that lifelong commitment to lifetime learning. and there's lots of ways to connect. And so the Alumni Association is leaning into that goal that the university has as part of their strategic plan and offering ongoing professional learning in this space. And so this conversation today around, retirement ready in 60 minutes, I hope what it did for our participants is give them a nugget or two of here's what I might need to do next, or what do I need to do to reach out. And I know we had a question about, can I get contact information from our panelists? And we will certainly provide that. This webinar recording will go up on the Alumni Association Facebook or website, and we'll also give links to that through our social media platform so that folks can access that afterwards. A couple things as you make your schedules for the new year, which I can't believe I'm actually talking about the new year, but here we are. Our next series actually is February 10th. And this actually connects into what Janine and I were talking about a little bit earlier today around mentoring. And so we're thrilled to be talking about how do we make the connections and top tips for mentoring. And there's lots of ways that we're going to be able to build into that. And one of the ways that you can connect with us right now is through our platform, which is Cardinals Connect. And so you have the opportunity to join that community to continue to grow your professional learning network. We dropped that in the chat for you. So if you've not connected through the Cardinals Connect website, please do that. And there's an opportunity for you to engage with other alumni as well as undergraduate students who might be interested in mentoring. So we hope that you join us on February 10th at noon for this really important topic about mentoring. And as we wrap, I just want to thank David, Janine, and Gary again for your expertise. Retirement is a challenging topic. And you provided great structure and continuity around what do we need to do next. And so the information that Janine shared at the beginning with the considerations and those questions will also post, so you have access to those. So again, thank you, all three of you, for your expertise and your time today. And thanks for our participants, and everyone have a great holiday season, and we'll see you in February. Chirp, chirp.
Chirp, chirp.